For 12 years, nobody saw it. A video filmed in 2009, buried in the vaults, deemed too hot for television, too shocking for audiences. It featured America's grandmother, the sweet, innocent Betty White, saying things that would make a sailor blush, doing things that would have destroyed her wholesome image. And the victim of her attacks? Ryan Reynolds, Hollywood's golden boy, reduced to screaming on camera while Betty White did something so outrageous that the crew couldn't stop laughing. The video was shot on the set of The Proposal, the romantic comedy that would earn $317 million worldwide. But this footage? It never made the final cut. It never aired on television. It sat, hidden, for over a decade, until January 17, 2021, when Ryan Reynolds decided the world was finally ready to see the real Betty White. He uploaded the video to YouTube with a simple caption, "We made this 12 years ago." Within hours, it went viral. Millions watched in shock as Betty White, 87 years old at the time of filming, unleashed a torrent of profanity, flipped off Ryan Reynolds, and revealed a side of herself that nobody knew existed. This is the story of the forbidden Betty White video, and why it took 12 years for the truth to come out. The year is 2009. The Proposal is in production, and the set is buzzing with energy. Sandra Bullock, one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, is playing a high-powered executive who forces her assistant to marry her to avoid deportation. Ryan Reynolds, riding high off his success in romantic comedies, is that assistant. And Betty White, 87 years old and experiencing a late career renaissance, is playing Ryan's grandmother in Alaska. The movie is funny, charming, and destined to be a hit. But behind the scenes, something else is happening. The cast is filming promotional material, behind-the-scenes content, the kind of stuff that studios use to market movies. And someone has an idea. What if Betty White wasn't actually the sweet grandmother everyone thinks she is? What if, for just a few minutes, they filmed a parody where Betty shows her dark side? Ryan Reynolds loves the concept. Sandra Bullock is in. And Betty White? At 87 years old, she's more than ready to shock the world. The video begins innocently enough. Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock are sitting together, preparing to film a standard promotional interview. Ryan starts talking to the camera, explaining what fans can expect from The Proposal, when suddenly Betty White enters the frame. She's smiling, waving to the crew, exuding that trademark warmth that made her America's sweetheart. Sandra immediately lights up, jumping to greet her. "Betty!" she exclaims, embracing the older actress like she's the most important person on set. And in that moment, Ryan Reynolds realizes something. Betty White might be nice to Sandra, but to him, she's about to become his worst nightmare. Betty sits down next to Ryan, completely ignoring him as she chats with Sandra. Finally, she turns to him, and her expression changes. Gone is the warm smile. In its place, cold disdain. "Brian," she says, her voice flat. Ryan blinks. "It's Ryan, actually. We've been working together for weeks, months, actually." Betty stares at him, unimpressed. "You've been a terrible assistant that whole time." The word hangs in the air. Assistant. Betty White just called Ryan Reynolds, the co-star of the movie, her assistant. And she's not joking. Ryan tries to correct her, tries to explain that he's actually one of the lead actors in the film, but Betty cuts him off. "When Betty White says she wants a cup of coffee," she says, her voice rising, "you get her a cup of coffee." And then, without missing a beat, She adds, "You ab-crunching jackass." The profanity lands like a bomb. The crew behind the camera erupts in shocked laughter. Sandra Bullock's mouth drops open. And Ryan Reynolds, he's frozen, staring at this woman who, just moments ago, was America's wholesome grandmother, now calling him an obscene name with the casual delivery of a stand-up comedian. But Betty White isn't done. She leans in closer, her eyes locked on Ryan's, and delivers the coup de grace. When Betty White says she wants a cup of coffee, you get her a fucking cup of coffee. The F word. Betty White, 87 years old, just dropped an F-bomb on Ryan Reynolds in front of the entire crew, and she's not embarrassed. She's not apologizing. She's staring him down like a mob boss delivering a threat. Ryan, to his credit, stays in character. He lets the anger build, lets the humiliation simmer, and then he explodes. "I'm going to tell you exactly how it is, okay?" he says, his voice shaking with mock rage. "You seem like an adorable, sweet old lady on the outside, but on the inside, you're like this seething demon." The camera zooms in on Betty's face. She doesn't flinch. If anything, she looks pleased. Ryan continues, his voice getting louder. "You hear me? Why don't you go suck a hot cock?" The room goes silent. Ryan Reynolds just told Betty White, America's grandmother, to perform an explicit sexual act on camera for a promotional video for a Disney movie. The absurdity of it all is too much. The crew loses it, laughing so hard they can barely keep the camera steady. And Betty White? She immediately shifts gears, her face crumpling into exaggerated sadness as she runs to Sandra Bullock for comfort. Sandra wraps her arms around Betty, glaring at Ryan. "That is a living legend," Sandra says, her voice dripping with contempt. "You are not." And just as Sandra turns her back, Betty White does something that would become iconic. She looks directly at Ryan Reynolds, still being comforted by Sandra, and slowly, deliberately raises her middle finger. The ultimate act of defiance. America's grandmother, flipping off Deadpool. The video was comedy gold. 3 minutes of pure, unfiltered chaos that showcased Betty White's comedic genius and Ryan Reynolds' willingness to play the straight man. It was edgy, it was shocking, and it was absolutely hilarious. There was just one problem. Nobody could figure out what to do with it. The video had been made for Funny or Die, the comedy website known for celebrity sketches and viral content. But even Funny or Die hesitated. This was Betty White, after all, the woman who had been on television since the 1940s, the beloved grandmother figure who had charmed generations. Could they really release a video of her cursing, flipping people off, and engaging in crude humor? The answer apparently was no. The video was shelved, filed away, forgotten. For 12 years, it existed only as a memory for the cast and crew who had been there that day. Ryan Reynolds had a copy. Sandra Bullock probably had one too. But the public? They had no idea it existed until 2021. By then, Ryan Reynolds and Betty White had established their friendship in the public eye. Every year on her birthday, Ryan would post a tribute, joking about their fake relationship. Betty would respond in interviews, keeping the bit alive. They had chemistry, they had history, and most importantly, they had mutual respect. So when Betty White's 99th birthday rolled around on January 17th, 2021, Ryan Reynolds decided it was finally time. He uploaded the forbidden video to his YouTube channel with a simple message. "We made this 12 years ago. Betty turns 99 today, but she is 100% the funniest person on the planet. The reaction was instantaneous. Within hours, the video had hundreds of thousands of views. By the end of the day, it had crossed 1 million. People couldn't believe what they were watching. Betty White cursing. Betty White flipping off Ryan Reynolds. Betty White asking for coffee like a mafia boss. It was shocking, it was hilarious, and it was the most Betty White thing anyone had ever seen. Because here's the thing nobody understood at the time. The video wasn't just a joke. It was Betty White's way of putting everyone at ease. In 2025, actress Malin Akerman, who played Ryan's ex-girlfriend in The Proposal, finally revealed the truth in an interview. She explained that when she first arrived on set, she was terrified. Working with Betty White, a living legend, felt overwhelming, but Betty had a solution. She started using foul language, not because she was crude, but because she wanted the younger actors to relax. "She wanted to put me at ease," Malin explained. "So she started cursing, using all this foul language, and suddenly I wasn't nervous anymore. That was Betty. She knew how to make you comfortable." The forbidden video, the one that had been hidden for 12 years, wasn't just comedy. It was Betty White showing Ryan Reynolds, Sandra Bullock, and everyone else on that set that they could let loose, that they didn't have to treat her like a fragile icon, that she was one of them. And then, 10 months after Ryan uploaded the video, Betty White died. December 31st, 2021, just 17 days before her 100th birthday. The world mourned. Tributes poured in from every corner of the entertainment industry. And that forbidden video? It went viral all over again. People rewatched it, shared it, turned it into TikTok clips under the hashtag The Betty White Incident. Because in her final year, Betty White had given the world one last gift. Proof that she was never just America's grandmother. She was a comedian, a rebel, a woman who knew that sometimes the best way to show love is to tell someone to go get you a cup of coffee, and if they don't, to call them an ab-crunching jackass. Ryan Reynolds never made another birthday post for Betty. He didn't need to. That video, the one that had been hidden for 12 years, said everything. It showed the world who Betty White really was when the cameras weren't rolling. And more importantly, it showed why Ryan Reynolds loved her. Not because she was sweet, not because she was wholesome, but because she was real. The forbidden video, the one that took 12 years to see the light of day, wasn't just a behind-the-scenes blooper. It was a masterclass in comedy, a testament to Betty White's genius, and a reminder that the best friendships are built on mutual willingness to be ridiculous. Ryan Reynolds and Betty White understood something fundamental, that laughter is a form of intimacy, that being able to curse at someone, to flip them off, to call them names in front of a camera crew, means you trust them completely. And for 12 years, that video sat in the vault, waiting for the right moment. When Ryan finally released it on Betty's 99th birthday, he wasn't just sharing a funny clip. He was sharing a piece of their friendship, a moment that showed the world that Betty White was more than an icon. She was a friend, a comedian, and one hell of an ab-crunching jackass. The video has been viewed millions of times now. It's been dissected, quoted, turned into memes. But the message remains the same. Betty White was never just sweet. She was spicy. And the world is better for having seen it,